How's it going, guys? In today's video, I've got a lunch for you guys that I eat as a type 1 diabetic. If you are new, I am type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed 2 months ago. I started this channel and other accounts on other social media in order to show you guys how I work on managing my blood sugars, keeping them in a normal, non-diabetic range in order to avoid long-term diabetic complications. Currently, my blood sugar is at 80 milligrams per deciliter, which is pretty solid. That was after dosing for my workout this morning. That's a whole separate video and topic that I will have to go over. But that's after dosing for my workout, working out, lifting weights, I should say, and then having a little snack afterwards. Then I ran to the store and did a few things. But so this is where we want to be, obviously, in a good range before we start lunch. But if you're not, that's totally fine. And it's possible to get that back down using the insulin for the meal. Now, most of my knowledge that I have gotten on how to dose properly for my meals, on what foods to eat, things like that, almost all of it is from this book. So if you do not have this book, I highly, 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 highly recommend ordering this book, Dr. Bernstein's Diabetes Solution. It's an awesome book to refer back to when you have questions, when you are confused about something, things like that. It's not necessarily a book you just go through and read. It's more of a reference book, like I said. So all this stuff I'm talking about, I learned from here. I didn't come up with it. I didn't invent it on my own or anything like that. So once again, go order this book, start reading it, start going through it with your parents, start going through it with your spouse, or subscribe here, and I'm going to go over things in this book as time goes on in different videos. I eat an early lunch. It's not really lunch. It doesn't really matter what you call it, but I just have a little snack in the morning after my workout, a beef stick, a small protein bar, something like that. And this is one of my bigger meals. I do have a larger appetite. This can be done with a smaller portion of food, but I'm just showing you the doses I take, how I figure it all out on my own. Now, this may be another confusing part for some people. Again, I learned it in this book, so go get the book. I was prescribed Humalog when I was first diagnosed. This is what I was told to use for mealtime insulin. However, they didn't give me any direction on how to do it. It was actually just used to correct high blood sugars before a meal. So they would say, if you're above 150, you take a unit of this, and if you're above another certain level, 2 units. So you take it, and then you just eat your meal, and it would bring me down slightly. I would just go back up after eating my meal. So it didn't really work out very well. But in this book, it suggested Novolin R, which is actually an older insulin, and it's a little bit slower acting insulin. The reason I'm using this is because my meals are a majority of protein. Protein is slower digesting than carbohydrates, and this matches the spike that protein causes versus the very fast spike of fast acting carbohydrates, which we want to avoid. So again, this meal is probably large for a lot of you. It's about 90 grams of protein, so it's quite a bit of protein. But yeah, 90 grams of protein is probably going to be about 10 grams of carbohydrates. I'll be going into explaining my whole diet. This whole thing is based off of a low carbohydrate diet because certain carbohydrates, which again, there's so much information that I will be going over. Certain carbohydrates are fast acting carbohydrates like sugar, like rice, potatoes, bread, fruits. Those are all fast acting carbohydrates that we don't have insulin to match that carbohydrate spike. So that's why we avoid those things. So Humalog, I do not use for meals. I do use it before my weightlifting, and I will go into that in a whole separate video. Novolin R, you can get it over the counter at Walmart, which again, I was not told. I asked to be prescribed this, and they questioned me on it and said that I would need to go through my doctor. I need to jump through a few hoops essentially. And I talked to another type 1 diabetic, a type 1 diabetic doctor. So he has type 1, and he goes, oh, you can just go to Walmart, get that over the counter. And I was like, well, that would have been nice to know. So Novolin R over the counter at Walmart. I do not recommend just doing experiments, doing these own things. Work with your doctor. Find a doctor that will work with you. I can give you guys a doctor I am working with, I recommend, that has helped me tremendously. Instead of counting carbohydrates and injecting insulin based on that, like diabetics are taught, we are injecting insulin based on how much protein we're eating. Again, this calculation I'm getting out of this book, so go get the book. I usually use the calculator on my phone, but obviously I'm recording with my phone because I don't have a camera yet or anything, so I'm going to be using this calculator. Hopefully you guys can see it. So I have already pre-decided essentially what my meal is going to be. It will be a steak. Again, you guys don't have to do a steak. You can do ground beef, chicken, turkey, pork, anything that is high in protein. I just chose steak because I work for myself here at home and I really enjoy steaks. So I'm going to be doing a steak, and the steak is 10 ounces. It is a New York strip, and I use MyFitnessPal to figure out all the protein, carbs, fats, calories. I use MyFitnessPal to do all that. I'll probably show some screen recordings here of me putting it in, searching for it. Again, this is going to be a big learning process for a lot of you guys. I was already into fitness and already into tracking calories and figuring out my food, protein, things like that. So it was not as big of a jump for me. But if you eat the typical American diet, this is going to be a big jump for you guys. But that's okay. You got to take it slowly. You got to have people there supporting you. That's the whole point of some of these videos as well, is to help you guys and get you guys on the right track so we don't have long-term diabetic complications. All right, here we are inputting everything into MyFitnessPal. Type in New York strip, 10 ounces, how much it weighs, put in the meal that you're having it for. If you need more information how to use MyFitnessPal, there's lots of videos out there. Go ahead and check those out. Here we are searching for the protein bar. Make sure to select one that uses net carbs, not the actual carbs. So we're at 76 grams of protein. Now we're inputting the peanut butter cups. Everything's pretty simple once you learn how to do it. Now we are close to the 93 grams of protein. I'll use this Catalina Crunch just as a filler to get us to that 94 gram of protein. Okay, so like I said, 90 grams of protein, roughly 10 grams of net carbs. Net carbs can be a little bit tricky to figure out, so that's another thing that I will kind of go over. But these things I know don't spike my blood sugar, so I have figured these ones out. There will be things that will, there will be things that don't. Again, I will go over some things on what I know, but this is what I'm having for lunch today. So obviously we've got our New York strip that I will be cooking, 10 ounces roughly. So all this together, 93 grams of protein, 11 grams of carbohydrates, fat. I'm not really concerned about fat at all. So I really just go off of protein, carbohydrates, and then if we get the same amount of protein and about the same amount of carbohydrates every day, the fat is going to be fairly similar as long as we eat the same amount of calories. I'm going to get this New York strip cooking, but I'm going to inject the insulin before. I take this Novolin R about 15 to 20 minutes before I eat. This is going to be different for everybody. Everything here is going to be different for everybody. How long before you should take it, how much you should take, all those things. I'm very insulin sensitive because I weightlift. Exercising makes you more insulin sensitive. I'm about on a half the dose of Novolin than I was when I wasn't working out, if that makes sense. So we take that 93 grams of protein and we divide it by 6, which gives us ounces of protein. I will try and go over it in some of this book, but there's a calculation that they have that you take the grams of protein you're eating and you divide it by 6. It gives you the actual ounces of protein in the food you are eating, because if you just weigh this New York strip, there's some fat in there, and so that fat adds weight. So you can't go off of, oh, it's 10 ounces. It's a 10-ounce New York strip, so it's 10 ounces of protein. That's not how it works. So you take your grams of protein, 93 grams of protein, which is what I'm having for this meal, divide it by 6. 93 grams of protein divided by 6. It should equal about 15 ounces, 15.5 ounces. So 15.5 ounces, anywhere from the 14.5 to 15.5 range, I have found out 2 units of Novolin R keeps me pretty steady as long as I worked out that morning. And I did work out this morning, so I'm going to do 2 units of this Novolin R. I just inject it into my stomach. I don't know if YouTube likes that kind of thing. Can't really see anything. I'll video it anyways. If you're diabetic, you've probably seen this before, so it's hopefully not a big deal for you guys. All right, I'm going to get this New York strip starting to cook because it is pretty thick. It was frozen. I had it in the oven just to kind of warm it up. But let's get this thing cooking, and I'm going to inject this Novolin. Pretty simple. Takes like 30 seconds. Alcohol pad. I already have the needle on here. Covered up, obviously, but pretty easy. I inject. You can actually probably see my injection spots right here. I inject mostly right around here. I've got to look into where more I can inject. I know you can inject, I think, anywhere there's fat, but this is where I inject for right now. Like I said, I'm only 2 months in, so this is just what I go off of. And I kind of just switch sides as I go. Like this morning, I injected here before my workout, and then for lunch I'll inject here, and then for my dinner I'll inject here, and then my Tresiba, my long-acting insulin, I'll inject here. That's just kind of how I do it. So alcohol pad, wipe it off. I put 2 units on here just to make sure that there's no air in the system. I know you're supposed to do this facing up, but it never gets the bubbles out, so I just face it down, make sure there's insulin in there. You just don't want to be thinking you're getting 2 units and you get 1 unit of air and 1 unit of insulin. That wouldn't be ideal. So now it's primed. Like I said, I'm taking 2 units. I just leave it in for a little bit, make sure we get all the insulin. Sometimes I hurt a little bit, sometimes I don't. But, a little bit of pain is good for you. So that's it. Now, I'm going to set the timer on my phone. Because I'm already in a good blood sugar level, I'm going to wait 15 minutes. If I was high, say 100, I would wait like 17 minutes or 16 minutes. It does make a little bit of a difference. If I was higher, I would wait probably 20 minutes. If I was in the 70s or like right now in the 80s, 15 minutes. That way the food might even start working a little bit before, bring us up into the mid 80s, something like that. This isn't always perfect, but it's better than being way up in the 100s, high 100s, maybe even 200s, and causing long-term damage. So we don't want to do that. So I'm going to start the timer on my phone. All right, timer on the phone is going. We've got our peanut butter cups, that's ready to go. Protein bar, ready to go. I'm going to weigh out this Catalina Crunch, and I'm cooking the steak currently. And when I get it all done, I'll show you guys, eat it, and we'll see what my blood sugar does after my meal. It's going to be, you're not going to see all of it, but I'll show you, an hour, 2 hours, something like that. If I get a low, I'll show you. If I get a high, I'll show you. Try and talk about what we did wrong. And yeah, learn. It's always learning, and that's just kind of what it has to be, I guess. Also, very highly recommend. This is a Greater Goods. That's the name brand, Greater Goods scale. It's super nice, super small. Yeah, if you got a plate you need to weigh, you just set this on here like this, and it raises it up so you can set the whole plate on here. But this is how I weigh out all my food. Yeah, works awesome. Battery hasn't died yet, and it's pretty accurate. So I'll show weighing out this Catalina Crunch. Pretty simple, but if you guys have never used a food scale before, here you go. Make sure you zero out when you put the little container on. I'm mixing traditional and creamy ranch. So I'm going to do, got to switch this to ounces. So I'm going to do about half ounce ranch, half ounce traditional. And it doesn't need to be right on the money, and it's honestly not that much, but I just needed a little filler to get me to that 90-ish grams of protein mark. There we go. Close enough. Again, not much, but just something as a filler so that we hit our mark we needed to hit. All right, food is all done. We still got about 7 minutes on the timer, so we gotta wait to eat. But a little bit of delayed gratification is good for everybody. So we're gonna wait about 7 minutes. We can start eating, and I will see you guys afterwards. If I have a low, I'll update you. If I got a high, I'll update you. But yeah, then we'll just talk about it as we go a little bit afterwards. And yeah, that'll be lunch. And I'll probably do dinner's gonna be about the same, so I probably won't do a dinner, but I will do definitely on how I have to dose and control for my workouts, things like that. So let's get eating in about 6 minutes. We are coming up on 3 hours after my meal. It is 1:20. I ate around 10:30, a little bit after that, so 2.5 hours. Currently, my blood sugar is 75, which is slightly low, and it has been moving down slowly. So like right now, I'm gonna have 2 Smarties. I haven't corrected since lunch. I'm gonna have 2 Smarties, which is less than 1 gram of carbohydrates, which will slightly bring me up, which should be perfect. I'm not heading down quickly. This is the whole point of no large amount of carbohydrates at meals, and when you don't have large amount of carbohydrates, you don't have to have a large amount of insulin, so you avoid either spikes or lows quickly. So just 2 Smarties, and it'll give me a little bump. And this was a pretty good dose. Some days it's not good. Some days I'd go a little low. Some days I kind of go high. It really just depends, but safe to say this was a good dose of insulin, 2 units for that 93 grams of protein. But again, it can change day to day based on your insulin sensitivity, the type of protein, but it's a very good general baseline for me that I know I'm going to be somewhat close. So I'm going to have these 2 Smarties. It should show it on the Dexcom. I'll probably show you guys that, and then that will be it for lunch. And dinner will be about the same thing, and I'll be ready to put out some more videos for you guys here soon. It is now about 25 minutes after this. I took the 2 Smarties, and here's what my blood sugar is at now. Currently at 82, and it might go up slightly from here. And you just kind of have to figure it out. If it starts going down a little bit more, just another 2 Smarties maybe. So it's really easy to correct lows when they're not extreme lows. Because when you have an extreme low, you take a bunch of sugar, it goes way up or it doesn't go up enough. So it's really difficult when you're taking large amounts of insulin because you're eating large amounts of carbohydrates to control after a meal. So that's why I eat how I eat. If you guys found this helpful, please subscribe, please give it a like. I'm trying to grow this channel so I can reach as many of you as possible and help you guys avoid the long-term complications of diabetes. I don't want those complications. You don't want them. We don't want each other to have them. So please give this a like, subscribe. Check me out on other platforms at the Diabetic Burger, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.